A dancer, an alcoholic, a substance abuser. Once she was a first lady. She overcame breast cancer. She was Betty Ford. Betty Ford recently died on July 8th, and in her honor, I would like to tell you her life story in remembrance of an extraordinary woman. She danced throughout life. She started when she was 8 at a local dance school in Grand Rapids. She learned ballet, tap, and modern movement. By 14, she could teach younger children, and she taught them the foxtrot, waltz, and the Big Apple. To afford these dance classes, she modeled at a local store, and in high school, she opened her own dance school called the Betty Bloomer Dance School. And during the summer, she would volunteer at she would work at a camp called Camp Burn Offum. So her childhood was not without tragedy. When she was 16, her father died of carbon monoxide asphyxiation. Her mother was resilient, and she was a true role model for the future First Lady. Together they worked with disabled children, and when Betty was 22, she taught deaf and blind children how to dance. She taught a blind child the ballroom dance, and she learned basic sign language for the deaf. Did you know that her engagement to Gerald Ford was basically a secret? See, she was a divorced dancer, and they married after the polls were counted, and he was already elected congressman. So that kind of foreshadowed her being a controversial first lady. She was a really strong women's rights supporter, and she lobbied hard for the Equal Rights Amendment. She also supported the Supreme Court decision of abortion, and she survived breast cancer. She also did the bump on television, and that was a 70s music dance phase. So the Time named her the Woman of the Year, but for the first time, the First Lady was being picketed outside the White House for her political views. Mail to the White House was in opposition 2-1, but she had approval rating of 75%. So while Gerald Ford was off campaigning, she was mom and dad. She was the den mother, the Sunday school teacher, the PTA member, and the driver to all of her kids' various activities. Then, on top of that, she would campaign in the Social Society of Washington for her husband. She was basically a face of the Republican Party. Nevertheless, she was stressed out. One day, when she was trying to open a window, she got a pinched nerve in her neck, and she was hospitalized for about 2 weeks. Afterwards, she developed an addiction to Valium, and in 1965, she had a nervous breakdown and had to seek out psychiatric help, which was unheard of. Then in the 70s, she had an intervention for her alcoholism and substance abuse. She went to a Naval Treatment Center, and it really affected her because she co-founded the Betty Ford Center. It was the first licensed addiction hospital in the world, and 50% of it is still reserved for women. So, Betty Ford, she was an unlikely spouse of a politician, but her approval ratings were much higher. Although she was publicly controversial, the American public appreciated her frankness. She was a strong women's rights supporter, and her disclosure about breast cancer likely saved many lives. The Betty Ford Center will live on in her name, and hopefully her many contributions to foundations and non-profit organizations will be remembered also. She was the extraordinary Betty Ford. May she rest in peace. How long is that?
Yes.
Okay.